What's going on, guys? Super Insane 18 here, and today I'm going to be bringing you a post-ban list Rescue Ace deck profile. Obviously, Airlifter went down to 1, so there are some changes that needed to be made with the deck, and I actually took this to the Utah Regional this past weekend. Unfortunately, I bubbled the event, but I did make some changes to the list from what I was playing a couple of days ago, and in testing, it has seemed to have been performing a lot better, so want to bring you guys the updated list. Let's go ahead and jump on it. Thanks to it being newly limited on the most recent ban list, we are on only one copy of Airlifter, and while you might think that this hurts the consistency of the deck because Airlifter was your one card combo, thankfully we are playing other cards in the deck that you will see later on that kind of supplement the second and third Airlifter, so we really don't lose all that much consistency. We are obviously on 3 copies of Rescue Ace Hydrant. Unfortunately, Hydrant isn't a one-card combo in and of itself, but there is a one-card combo with Hydrant that you can play, and while it's not as explosive and as good as the typical Rescue Ace end board, it does give us a bit of advantage, so I definitely think that this is a card you want to max out on, especially because of the Sinful Spoils engine, being able to add copies of it from your deck to your hand and summon them from your deck to your field. You just want to have as many copies of this as possible. Now, we are on 3 copies of Rescue Ace Impulse. This is a card that over the weekend I only played 2 of, and the reason was because I was actually main decking Fenrir, and sadly this card does conflict with Fenrir, because if you use it on your opponent's first turn, if they win the dice roll, you're not able to summon the Fenrir because you'll have monsters on your side of the field. So I've cut the Fenrir and bumped this up to 3 because I think that the consistency of being able to play second is incredibly important by using the Impulse to summon out something like your Fire Engine. Fire Engine is really important not only because you can summon it when you summon a Rescue Ace, but more importantly, if your opponent special summons, you can summon a level 4 or lower Rescue Ace from your hand, deck, or graveyard, not only letting you get access to your Airlifter immediately, but also giving you a good amount of recursion and playability if that Airlifter is no longer in the main deck, since it's able to be summoned from either the hand or the graveyard with the engine's effect. We are on 2 copies of our Preventer and 2 copies of our Turbulence. All of this is just super standard. You wouldn't play more, you wouldn't play less. I did lose my round 6 at the regional because I opened up double Turbulence, Preventer, and 2 hand traps, and obviously you just can't really play with that. So it kind of is a double-edged sword, but you want to play these numbers because it's just the most consistent way to make sure that you don't run out of steam. This isn't really an OTK deck, it is a control deck, so you want to make sure that you have all of this access later on, which is why you have to run more than 1 copy. We are playing 3 copies of Diabellstar the Black Witch. Previously, you would only play this at 1 or 2, but now with Airlifter at 1, you can think of the second and third copy as additional copies of Airlifter, since it is also your 1-card combo. Obviously, it's more like 1.5 cards because you need a discard, but it's still a very consistent way to get into your engine, and it allows you to play off of just whatever you open in your hand as long as you have the Black Witch. Onto some hand traps. We are playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom, most generic hand trap in the game, and you are able to actually recur it to your hand with something like a Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf, and sometimes that can just be the nail in the coffin that you need. We are on 3 copies of Effect Veiler. At the time of recording this video, Rescue Ace is still definitely the best deck in the format, so you want ways to stop it, and Effect Veiler is a very effective way of doing so. We are on 2 copies of Droll and Lockbird. Adding cards from your deck to your hand is very important in this format. Even this deck, which previously didn't lose to something like Droll and Lockbird, now actually can because of how the Black Witch engine works. You're going to need to use the Diabellstar to set your original. The original is going to need to summon the Hydrant. Hydrant's usually going to search for the Airlifter, that way you will have access to your emergency, but if you get drolled on the search of the Airlifter, obviously you're no longer searching the emergency, so it really puts them on better habit. That's going to be it for the monsters. We are on to our Rescue Ace engine spells, which of course is our 3 emergency and our 1 alert, our 1 rescue, and our 1 HQ. This is really standard. You don't really need to explain too much about it. These are obviously all searchable and settable from your deck, and emergency is the best way to play this game. Really strong card, just being able to access anything, being able to dodge hand traps, just an incredible combo piece. We have our 3 copies of Haunted and our 1 copy of Original Sinful Spoils. This is just for the Sinful Spoils engine, obviously, being able to search the Witch and summon the Hydrant from deck, as well as giving you additional draws and searchability on later turns, or actually you can even use this the same turn, just being able to gain additional resources and some additional push that you might need. We do have our 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity because consistency is the name of the game. And then we have 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. This is a very hand trap heavy format, so I thought that these cards were really good going into it, just because you are able to either rip a card out of your opponent's hand if you still have gas and you don't really need to draw. You can draw if you really need to continue through a hand trap, or if you're going second, it's a way to pick apart a board by non-target taking control of a monster that they have. We also have our 1 copy of Rhoda. This is just another copy of Airlifter. And then onto the traps, we have our Contain and Extinguish. Obviously, these are very important for Rescue Ace, and our 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Now, this is actually a 44 card main deck, and the reason is because I ran into way too many instances where I was opening up the one-ofs. I think I opened Extinguish literally all but 1 game at the Utah Regional, and honestly, you just don't want those bricks, so by upping the deck count a little bit, you lower that percentage that you will actually run into your one-ofs, which is very important. So that's 44 cards. Let's show you guys the extra. Before we get into that extra deck, I do just want to mention one of the newer channel sponsors, and that is going to be Whatnot. If you've been watching my videos lately, you've been hearing me talk about this. It is an awesome live streaming auction website that is looking to grow their TCG and specifically their Yu-Gi-Oh side of the site. So if you sign up using my link in the description down below, not only will you be helping support the channel, but you will essentially get free money as they give you a $15 credit towards your first purchase. So definitely go ahead and check them out. Again, link in the description down below. For the extra deck, we are playing a couple more Link 1s than you guys have normally seen me play in previous builds. We are obviously still on our Link Karibo, but we also have Relinquished Anima as well as Salamangreat Almirage. Now, the Link Karibo is absolutely mandatory. You might be asking why we're playing these 2. The Almirage, we're playing level 1s, and sometimes your opponent just plays into it. Not only that, but it's just a way to kind of bait something out. If they have like a negate, you can go ahead and Anima. They'll most likely be forced to negate it, and then you're just free to play. And then the Almirage is actually for that 1-card Hydrant combo. For those of you that don't know, just Hydrant will be able to get you into a Decode Talker Heat Soul, which is not only going to draw you additional resources, but I've even had it where it's drawn me into the Turbulence, which then let me set 4 anyway, even though I otherwise would not have been able to. So I think it's really important. We are still on the Dark and Vegeta as our Charmers. These are really cool because obviously they're just able to link climb, but not just that, you are able to then go into something like Selene because they are spellcasters, and if you notice, we are playing quite a bit of spellcasters in our main with the 3 Black Witch, the 3 Veiler, and the 2 Droll, so the Selene will be able to reborn any of those and go for an Access Code Talker, and that just kind of gets us a lot of unnecessary advantage. We are on our 1 copy of IP Masquerena and our 2 copies of SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight is absolutely mandatory at 2 in this deck. The reason is because a lot of times you're going to summon one on your turn 1, because you can actually use it to help dodge hand traps on the Turbulence. If you activate the Turbulence and they do something like Veiler or Imperm, you can Little Knight banish itself and the Turbulence, and then the Turbulence is no longer face up on field to be negated by those cards, and you'll still get your set 4. It also helps you play through Nibiru, because if they Nibiru you, you can go ahead and Little Knight save one of your Rescue Ace, usually Turbulence, by banishing it in response to the Nibiru, and then you'll get them back in the end phase. We are on the 1 copy of Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf. Not only is it recursion, but it is mandatory for the Heat Soul combo because we need to be able to use Cyberus to summon it, which is why we also have the Decode Talker Heat Soul. Again, if you just open up nothing but Hydrant and hand traps or Hydrant and unplayable cards, this will get you additional resources. We do have our Nightmare Unicorn and our Selene as our Link 3s. These are really important. I've tried cutting the Unicorn before, but every time that I do, I just end up missing it. I really like the ability to just spin a card. It gives you an additional, essentially, way to just get rid of a card on field that you wouldn't otherwise have with the Selene. Then we have our access code. Obviously, this is pretty much the OTK button. You can go for a 5300 access code plus Turbulence or Preventer, and you're going to have a lot of damage, and if you're going into an empty board, it's going to be game. we have our one copy of Appaloosa. This isn't really something that I found myself making a lot on turn 1. It's one of those things that I actually found making in like turns 3 or 4 later on in the game when you can't quite get to lethal, but you want to be able to put something on board to just kind of prevent your opponent from clapping back. Usually you're able to play a much more successful resource game than your opponent in this deck. So having the Appaloosa to just throw on your end board after you've made your opponent exhaust all their resources, they're probably not going to be able to play through it. And the final card is going to be the Typhon. This is a card that I trash talked a lot when it first came out, but the more I play it, the more I see the usefulness of it. There are so many times where I've played through several interruptions my opponent has, and then I just end on a single monster and can't really go anywhere else, but Typhon is able to then get me into the game and pretty much just clear what my opponent has, because it can not only bounce a card, but it's usually big enough to run over something as well. So yeah, that's going to be the extra deck. And there you guys have it. That is going to be my updated Rescue Ace deck profile for the new January 2024 ban list. If I had these changes in the deck when I went to Utah, I really do think I would have topped instead of bubbling out like I did. So if you liked it, you know the deal. Make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, comment, share with friends. As always, don't forget to check out the channel sponsor Dueling Guard. Using code INSANE18, you will get 5% off your entire order. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.